fighter squadrons. This is on top of now newly declassified photographs. U.S. officials say they show more proof of Iran's involvement and responsibility in the attack on those two tankers last week.
Fox's Rich Edson in Washington. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi worried this could escalate the tensions, saying in a statement, diplomacy is needed to diffuse the tensions so that we do not make the region less safe. Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen say they've launched bomb-laden drones at Saudi Arabia. The kingdom says they were shot down. In New York State, so-called undocumented residents will soon be able to apply for driver's licenses. Governor Andrew Cuomo signing the green light bill, which he and other advocates say will make New York's roads safer. A Supreme Court ruling on Monday may have ramifications for former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort.
A 7-2 decision keeps in place an exception to the double jeopardy protection, upholding a rule that allows state and federal governments to prosecute someone for the same crime. The case was started by an Alabama inmate who was prosecuted by both the state and federal prosecutors for having a gun after an earlier conviction. But it's believed this decision could also impact President Trump's former campaign chairman Paul Manafort. Manafort has been sentenced on federal conspiracy and fraud convictions, but is also facing tax fraud charges in New York.
Fox's Jared Halpern. Manafort has been transferred to a federal prison in New York rather than Rikers Island, as had been requested by the Manhattan District Attorney. The Justice Department ruling as a federal prisoner, Manafort will remain in federal custody. This is Fox News.
Hey, welcome to this Subway ad for the new club collection. How do you want it?
I'll take a book club.
Absolutely.
So, last week we sunk our teeth into Subway's meaty new release, the Steak Club.
I didn't finish it yet.
Oh, not again, Sandra. This week, it's the new Southwest Chicken Club, also by Subway. No spoilers, but there's a tasty twist.
Jalapeno cheddar bread and guacamole?
Sandra, get out. Subway, make it what you want.
Good ending.
Limited time only at participating restaurants.
So what's the deal? Are you still paying for the right to have your checking account at your bank? Well, at Bank Pacific, we think it's our privilege, not our right. That's why we offer My Green Free Checking, where your monthly maintenance checking fees are zero. That's zero. And it comes with a free Visa check card and monthly green e-statements. My Green Free Checking. Bank Pacific today. Because having you as our customer, that's our privilege.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Viva Bank Pacific.
He hasn't offered details, but President Trump tweeting a few hours ago, next week, ICE will begin the process of removing the millions of illegal aliens who have illicitly found their way into the United States. They will be removed, the president tweets, as fast as they come in. President predicting big crowds in Orlando Tuesday night for the official kickoff announcement for his re-election campaign.
President Trump says the crowd looks to be setting records and that his campaign has received over 100,000 requests for tickets. If the crowd projections hold, it would be a very strong showing for the president's campaign kickoff, especially since it's in the all-important state of Florida.
Fox's Kristen Fisher. After internal polls showing the president trailing in some of the key battleground states, several of the campaign's polling unit have reportedly been let go. A spokesman for the campaign says those polls were all taken before the Mueller report came out. An Army veteran wearing a mask and carrying more than 150 rounds of ammunition for his high-powered rifle shot dead Monday after he opened fire outside a busy federal courthouse in downtown Dallas, Texas.
The shooter has been identified as Brian Isaac Clyde, age 22. He was discharged from the Army in 2017. We're working with our partners at DOD to examine his record and identify associates. We've recovered the firearm used in the attack, and we're working with our ATF partners to trace it and also conduct logical investigation about how he obtained it.
FBI agent Matt DeSarno says officials are still trying to determine a motive for that shooting. Egypt's first democratically elected president, Islamist leader Mohamed Morsi, has been buried under heavy security at a cemetery in Cairo, with his family attending. A member of Morsi's defense team says the funeral took place early Tuesday, a day after his collapse and death inside a glass cage in a Cairo courtroom. Egypt State TV, citing unnamed medical sources, say Morsi had a heart attack. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Business travel just got easier. Take your data plan with you for only $10 a day to all 17 Data2Go destinations. Never worry about additional data roaming charges when you go where your business needs you. The US, China, Thailand, and so much more. Have the assurance you need to check emails, surf the web, and stay connected. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your account is data to go ready. Docomo Pacific. Better together.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and don't you forget it either. That's the reason that we keep reminding people of the importance of the Bill of Rights on a daily basis. The Bill of Rights, each one is important in its own way, and certainly the Second Amendment is one of the very important parts of the Bill of Rights. So we start the program that way every day. Usually I go from there into a little homily on gun rights, or perhaps alert folks to those out there in our international radio listening audience who are hostile to the Second Amendment and hostile to guns and would use their efforts to take guns away from people so that we become a disarmed population. I'll try to give you a heads up on those. And I'll also let you know who the heroes are out there, the folks who are on the right side of this issue and are doing their best to protect your constitutional rights to keep and bear arms. The last couple days I've been talking about an article that I plucked from the website Gun Rights. And the title of the article is, quote, "Make July Gun Pride Month." That is a great idea. So the author here, Tom Knighton, says, so I'm proposing we make damn sure people know we're here and we won't be silent. Next month is July, the month we celebrate our nation's independence. How did we get independence? We shot people who thought we shouldn't have it. That's how we did it. As such, I'm making a humble proposal to the pro-gun people throughout the land. I propose we make July Gun Pride Month. And I've adopted that and am trying to stir up some interest right here on Guam. Wouldn't it be great if we had a parade down Marine Corps Drive for Gun Pride Month? Let's do it on the 4th of July. And Governor Leon Guerrero and Speaker Barnes, how about posting the National Rifle Association flag all around your buildings there and around Government House? And let's have some resolution presentations and a couple of cookie-pushing events to help your constituents out here celebrate Gun Pride Month. So I'm going to keep talking about that, and I'm looking for a champion for Gun Pride Month. And if I find that person, I will appoint, I was almost going to say it, but I caught myself in time. If I find that person, I'm going to appoint them the Grand Marshal of the Gun Pride Month Parade. I almost said him, but I caught myself in time. All right, so I got a phone call already. Marcus. Marcus. Yeah.
Hey, Baruch Hashem, praise God. My Torah judge salutes you and your show and all the great things you're bringing out. And thank God That'd be a good month to celebrate our Second Amendment. We don't want to use those things, but if we have to defend our country, our homeland, our family, friends, and the innocent, then I guess, we have to. Hello?
Yeah, well, of course, the real takeaway from your call is kind of let's thank God for tall tales, right, Marcus?
Yes, exactly. Because he's the ultimate judge and righteous one that can help us solve a lot of our silly problems, that we hyperventilate and conjugate about, and when really usually the best answer is the simplest answer. And I don't know why people want to make things so complicated. I guess it's just to confuse us simple people that we need them and we don't need God. But I don't know. I just I'm glad that there's common sense people like you around that and others that are bringing to light and helping us to get awoke in our lives.
Okay, well, I don't know about this woke business. I'm not a wokester, Marcus.
Well, it sounds like you are. You sound like you're almost like 16 or 17.
Yeah, but I'm not woke, and I don't want to be woke.
What do you want to be?
Well, I want to be a talk show host on the top-rated afternoon FM talk show host in the Western Pacific.
Well, I'll give you a gold star for that. I think you are.
Okay.
Not only intelligent, you're local, you know the Chamorro language better than most Chamorros, and you have a lot of history and a lot of respect. I don't like too many Marines, but you're one of the top ones I do love and appreciate a lot, because you guys, I know my grandparents, my mom, and them were so appreciative of the 3rd Division Marines that came, sacrificed their lives for our freedom.
Okay, well, Marcus, point number one, flattery will get you everywhere with me. Point number two, thanks to getting the program off to a good start, okay?
Okay, just
Buen provecho.
Come on.
Okay, so there's Marcus calling in here and telling us what a great show Tall Tales is. Yeah, I kind of think that I don't like to talk that much about myself, Real Joe Cruz, but in this case, I kind of think I knew that, right? Yeah, the only thing that kind of stops me from talking about it too much is my humility, which, of course, I'm very proud of, right? Yeah. I just saw Brad Hewitt pop in on Facebook, but his post seems to have gotten away from me here. But Brad Hewitt chimed in from the great nation of Texas.
Wow.
Yeah, part of our international radio listening audience. The United States, Texas. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how well you know your American history, Real Joe Cruz, but did you know that Texas was an independent country at one time?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
It probably still is an independent country. And the history books say that Texas annexed the United States in 1845. So since 1845, the United States has been part of Texas. Okay, we dispensed with the Second Amendment. Let's go from there right to Demi Ikotny. I think I've got yesterday's Daily News editorial. McConnell buries plans to protect U.S. elections. Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to pull it up online, and as luck would have it, I also have the Post editorial online here for some reason. I guess I didn't print either of them. Of course, with the Daily News, it's hardly worth the effort. Okay, here's the Post. Homeless underage children need intervention now. The government of Guam has a history of paying for something or hiring the services of someone under what's called an emergency purchase when it wants to. There were times when government of Guam's emergency procurement actions didn't make sense. And Public Auditor Benjamin Cruz pointed out an example of this last week. For 3 years, the Public Auditor's Office stated the Department of Corrections food services for prisoners and detainees were procured through an emergency purchase, some in intervals as short as 180 days, instead of putting up the services for bid in hope of getting the most out of every GovGuam taxpayer's dollar. Guam's General Services Agency has been able to do the job right, the public auditor has pointed out. The public auditor questioned whether it was by design or because of ineptitude that the prison's food services purchases could not go through a more competitive, more transparent, and thorough bid process. That sounds like something I would say. Public auditor questioned whether it was by design or because of ineptitude. What is it? Hanlon's Law. Never ascribe evil intent when simple incompetence provides a complete answer. GovGuam's foot-dragging on the prison meal services bid and the resulting use of an emergency procurement shows that the local government can make emergency purchases of goods or services when it needs to or wants to. We bring this up to highlight that when the governor and others in GovGuam want it, they find ways to use their emergency spending authority. We wish that the governor would wield her emergency powers urgently to help provide additional and better facilities for underage children from homeless families. Now, I wonder what an underage child is, Real Joe Cruz. An underage child.
Under 21?
Well, I would think, when we talk about someone being underage to buy cigarettes, that would be under 21. Underage to buy alcohol, that would be under 21. But an underage child, when is a child of age? I think to talk in terms of an underage child, maybe Andrew could do something with it. Maybe when he finishes with oxymorons, he'll go to redundancies, because I think children are always underage for one purpose or another. You got to be 12 years old to ride in the back of a pickup. I know that. So an 11-year-old child who you would find riding in the back of a pickup would be said to be underage. It was an underage child. Anyhow, because of it doesn't take long and a thorough look at the island to know that there are underage children who should be in school during the day and should be sleeping on a bed at night in the safety of their homes. However, because of the circumstances of these minor children's parents and guardians, these children are out there without a choice, exposed to the elements and the possibility of being preyed upon by criminals. Some of these children from homeless families are seen on the streets while school is in session. If they continue to be left out of classroom learning, these children will have a tough time getting out of their families' cycle of poverty and helplessness. There have also been instances when adults in these minor children families use these minors to beg for money. We cannot ignore these things. In Hagatna, Tamuning, Dedido, and Harmon, we don't even need to step out of our vehicles to witness this sad reality. Let's at least help the children of these homeless families. There are ways GovGuam emergency power should be used, and ensuring that there will be no further delays in helping provide shelter and a system for Guam's homeless minor children to be properly fed and to attend school should be high on the administration's agenda. I don't know that that's true. I just read in the paper the other day that, that we do this homeless survey. The Coalition for the Homeless does a survey, and if a family is living in an automobile, the Child Protective Services, if there's no abuse or neglect, Child Protective Services won't step in, even if they're living in a car. So what provision do we make for children who are living in substandard homes with their parents? I don't think we have anything at all on the books. But this is what the editorial says. There are ways GovGuam's emergency powers should be used in ensuring that there will be no further delays in helping to provide shelter and a system for Guam's homeless minor children to be properly fed and to attend school should be high on the administration's agenda. Well, I don't like the idea of kids, being homeless. And we know that homeless means not only sleeping in a bus stop, but it also means sleeping in a substandard dwelling, one of these perhaps what we're going to call a dormer-style dwelling. Dormer meaning the kind of house that Steve Dormer had up in Senahanya that was abandoned, and people just moved into it, and it had no water, none of the stuff that you'd expect in a house. I don't know that I don't know that the Post is putting its finger on something that actually exists. If the Post is saying we need to be providing such things, then I'll go along with it. But to say use your emergency powers to get people into these things, I don't know. It doesn't ring my bell this afternoon. So much for the Post. Let me go to the Daily News. I'm going to pull up the Daily News on my iPad here in a second. I hope it doesn't take me as long as it did to find something yesterday, Real Joe Cruz. While I'm doing that, I'm looking at Facebook, and somebody says, Bob, doesn't underage mean under the legal age for a particular statute? For example, you are underage to purchase alcohol even if you are 21, a legal adult. Yeah, that's kind of the way I approached it, that an underage child would be an 11-year-old whose parents wanted him to ride in the back of a pickup, when the law says you got to be 12 to ride in the back of a pickup. But I go along with that definition. In order to say that someone is underage, there has to be a benchmark age for which the person falls under. But just to talk in terms of underage children doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Let me find this editorial here. Yeah, well, I found it, but so what? Here it is. A devastating picture. Trump refuses to protect the country he leads. So I was better off before I found it, because it's the same old thing. It's, let's see, this is a guest editorial, or another view. This is from Sam Berger, the Vice President for Democracy and Government Reform at the American Center for Progress. Yeah, you kind of figure out where those folks are coming from, can't you? Vice President for Democracy and Government Reform at the Center for American Progress. Progress used to be a good word, We were all interested in progress at one time, making things better, moving forward, until the liberals in the Democrat Party made such a mess out of the word liberal that they stopped calling themselves liberals and started calling themselves progressives. And now they've pretty much ruined the word progress, too. So anytime I see the word progress, I have to lean over to the right and grab a hold of something because I know that writing is going to pull hard to the left. Okay, today, a nice sentimental editorial from the Post. Another nothing burger. The guy that they got to write this, Sam Burger. Yeah, Sam, your name has been changed by the powers vested in me as the sheriff of the Tall Tales Posse. I hereby change your name from Sam Burger to Nothing Burger. Because that's pretty much what the Daily News has run today. They seem to like running Nothing Burgers from Gannett a whole lot better than home cooking and barbecuing something right here on island so we could smell the smoke and stand around the barbecue and eat chesa. You know, that's how you keep your readership, Daily News, not by bringing in Nothing Burger from outside. Okay, so much for Zemi Ikotny. I'm going to go to the card now, and here's how the card looks for today. I've got AOC. Oh, I got a phone call here. Huh? I've got AOC versus the Hyde Amendment. Now, let me take care of Francis here first. Good afternoon, Francis.
Good afternoon, sir. I was wondering, I was listening to the Speaker Pelosi mentioning that she needed to find a way to have some kind of democracy to stabilize the region in the Middle East. With the evidence, I don't know what kind of evidence they found, but they sure as hell have some evidence that Iran was involved in that oil tanker thing. He sent about 1,000 more troops down there with jet fighters and aircrafts and all kinds of stuff. What does she mean by diplomacy?
Well, when it's Nancy Pelosi, it's hard to know what, if anything, she means when she opens her mouth. But if she's talking democracy in the Middle East, I will once again be very politically incorrect and tell you that in a Muslim country, democracy is not going to work. Because Islam is a theocracy. You know, as we've talked about before in the air here, the C-R-A-C-Y, cracy means government by, and democracy is government by the people. A theocracy is government by the theological folks. So in Islam, it's the imams and the other religious figures that run the government under Sharia law. There isn't any voting for anything. It's a totally top-down, not only religion but system of government that relies on Sharia law and the Quran. And to say that to try to mix democracy with it is probably like oil and water. Turkey was able to do it after World War I because of the extreme conditions that the fallen apart Ottoman Empire found itself in. But even in Turkey today, it's a struggle with the Islamists attempting to move the government of Turkey more and more towards a theocracy. So I don't spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out what Nancy Pelosi is trying to say. Probably about as much time as she does, Francis.
I think we have a situation, Bob, down there in the Middle East, and the tension is starting to build up. Don't you think so?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we're keeping an eye on that. Anyway, thanks for taking my call this afternoon.
Okay, Francis.
Tuned in, listening to you.
Okay, thanks for calling. Nice talking to you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so on the card today, Okay, it's already time for that second break, right? First break, yeah. Okay, well, thanks for playing Dave Brubeck's Take 5, Real Joe Cruz.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
We know too well the inconvenience of not having power after a storm. You worry about the food in the freezer going bad. Nights get hot. It's hard finding comfort when going to sleep. These are realities. But with solar and battery storage from Micronesia Renewable Energy, these realities can be a thing of the past. The solar works during the day and the batteries power your home at night. Call 632-2613 to see how solar plus battery storage can make life a little more convenient. MRE, the smarter choice. And now back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So this is going to be my third attempt at telling you what's on the calendar for this afternoon. Here it goes. We start out with AOC versus the Hyde Amendment. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez versus the Hyde Amendment. And this actually is a continuation of Michelle Armenta versus Jane Flores, Tall Tales versus Abortion Procurement, Maria Espinosa versus Lou and Jane, Lou versus babies, all of those things strung together. And I'm going to say with a little bit more today. And it all deals with Lou appointing Jane Flores to be the procurer of an abortionist for the island. And then after that, I've got Pika Feheran versus applicants for Chamorro Land Trust leases. I've got Joe San Augustine versus Michael J. Fox. Little Back to the Future, Real Joe Cruz. I've got Talina versus Jem Moylan. And I've got Tina versus Maybe. And Gibson's versus Wokesters, which was on the card yesterday. So I've got the poet laureate here has sent me 3 really good limericks dealing with the subject of abortion. Hard to make, I think it's probably hard to do limericks with euphemisms like right to choice and right to life. Abortion comes a lot easier because so many English words end in that syllable shun, abortion, conniption, contortion. Right? So here's the oxymoron limerick for today. You recall Andrew has become a specialist in oxymorons. He starting out, I was a very short giant. And then I was a tall gnome. And yesterday I was an obese anorexic. So here we go for today. Our Bob is the losingest winner. He always eats breakfast for dinner. He stands when he sits. He works when he quits. He's a righteously saintly sinner. Andrew, the poet laureate of Tall Tales. Okay, so let's start out here with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And Andrea says that the Hyde Amendment isn't about abortion. Now, I've talked about the Hyde Amendment before, and the Hyde Amendment is a federal statute. It's part of the national law. The Hyde Amendment is a legislative provision barring the use of federal funds to pay for abortion, with a couple of exceptions. Legislation, including the Hyde Amendment, generally restricts the use of funds allocated for the Department of Health and Human Services and consequently has significant effects involving Medicaid recipients. So it's a federal statute saying you can't use taxpayers' money on abortions. But Alexandria, AOC says that here's what she says. Democrat New York Representative AOC said the Hyde Amendment, which prevents the use of taxpayer dollars to fund abortions, quote, isn't about abortions per se. During a Sunday interview on ABC this week, I'm encouraged by the fact that he's now against the Hyde Amendment, Ocasio-Cortez said, responding to a question from ABC's Jonathan Karl about former Vice President Joe Biden's recent reversal on the issue. Nice, polite term here. I found this in the Daily Caller. If I had written the story, I wouldn't have used recent reversal. I would have said flip-flop. Yeah, when Biden found out that the lefties in his party, which is all but about 3 people, took issue with his not violently opposing the Hyde Amendment, he had an epiphany and decided, I really don't like that Hyde Amendment. Cortez called it a base level of where all candidates need to be. All candidates should oppose the Hyde Amendment. Reproductive health care for incarcerated women should be guaranteed as it is with all women in the United States. So I think it really depends. And that's really what the Hyde Amendment is really about. The Hyde Amendment isn't about abortion per se. The Hyde Amendment is truly about equality of health care and health care access for low-income women and women of color and women that get caught in our mass incarceration system. And so the Hyde Amendment is about income inequality, and it's about a women's health care and a system of income inequality. So I think we need to repeal it. Well, give it to a Democrat. Invent some vocabulary, a women's health care issue. Don't ever talk about abortion at all. Avoid the A word whenever you can. Talk about women's health care, equality, all of these really nice people of color, all of these really nice sounding words that would attempt to develop some sympathy. So I've made the statement here that I think we need a local equivalent of the Hyde Amendment. And I go back to what Jane Flores has told us. We know that the governor has tasked Jane Flores to go out and find an abortionist. And here's it from the Daily News from the 10th of June. The administration is looking into recruiting a doctor to provide abortions here, said Jane Flores, director of the Bureau of Women's Affairs. Flores said she will be having a closed-door meeting with the Department of Public Health and Social Services official to address the issue. They'll meet to, quote, talk about a plan to recruit a doctor, Flores said. The meeting is a response to the fact that no abortions have been reported since Dr. Freeman retired last year in May. So this is a terrible crisis that we find ourselves. We haven't had an abortion for a whole year. This is horrible. We've got to do something. How can Lou possibly think she's serving the people when there has not been an abortion on this island for a whole year? This calls for quick government action, just like what the Post is calling for, emergency powers. Governor Lulian Guerrero said she is pro-choice. She likes the sound of that better than saying she's pro-abortion. Flores said, let's see, the Associated Press in a recent article, she told the Associated Press in a recent article, officials on Guam are trying to recruit doctors to come to the island and establish clinics. Now remember, we found out about this from the international and national press before we ever found out about it in the local press. So how was it that the governor started her campaign to sell this somewhere else and not here, trying to kind of slide it under the radar? Then we want to say Flores said she is the official Leon Guerrero was referring to, and the recruitment plan is still in the preliminary stages. When asked if the doctor who will be recruited will work for the government or a private practice, Flores said she doesn't know yet. So it's possible. She's leaving the possibility open that we could have an abortionist on the payroll of the government of Guam. I don't know if that's a classified position, abortionist 1, abortionist 2, senior abortionist, whatever. But that's what they're up to. So I think what we need is a local equivalent of the Hyde Amendment, which says we don't spend any taxpayers' money, not only on abortion, but on recruiting an abortionist to come to the island. We don't go fishing off-island, sending ads off-island saying, come to beautiful, sunny Guam where we haven't had an abortion for a year. And you could come over here and hang out your shingle, Mr. Abortionist, and you could be an abortionist here. We shouldn't be spending any money on that. We shouldn't be using any government resources at all. If an abortionist wants to come, fine, but that should be his personal decision. It shouldn't be something, it's another one of those things where if that's what I said right? I made a mistake. If they want to come, that's their business. I just don't know why I should have to pay for it. I don't know why it should cost me a nickel, because I'm not pro-abortion. I'm anti-abortion. And there's nothing in the laws of Guam that says that our government should be out hunting for abortionists. There's nothing in the organic statute of Jane Flores's bureau that says she should be out hunting for an abortionist. As a matter of fact, the public policy of the island is the exact opposite. The last time the legislature spoke to this subject was when it outlawed and made it very clear that abortion is outlawed. And that life, let's see, I'm reading for Public Law 20-134, which says in the legislative finding, legislature finds for the purpose of this act, life of every human being begins at conception, and that unborn children have protectable interest in life, health, and well-being. So that's the public policy of this territory. Now, yeah, I know this guy over here knows all the answers. Yeah, but that was unconstitutional. Very true, but the legislature never repealed the provisions of 20-134, which passed unanimously. So that has to be seen, since it's the last expression of the people on this subject. That has to be seen as the public policy of the island. So it just seems it's irksome to think that the governor is going to use the power and prestige and material aspects of her office to push her own agenda. She wants to be pro-abortion, fine, but I don't appreciate her attempting to push it on anybody else in the absence of any statutory authorization. In fact, as I read it, contrary to the public policy of this island. So maybe what we need is the Hyde Amendment. Okay, and the only thing I got left to say about this one is that I've got a couple from Andrew here. Andrew didn't hold back on his limericks this time around, so these are not for the faint of heart. But this is what Andrew says. Now, once again, by way of definition, there is a skin rash called scabies. It's a skin infestation caused by a mite known as the Sarcoptes scabii. Untreated, these microscopic mites can live on your skin for months. They reproduce on the surface of your skin and then burrow into it and lay eggs. This causes an itchy red rash to form on the skin. Yeah, that's what scabies is. I've never had it. I've never even seen anyone who had it. I don't think I ever want to have it, right? But it's a word you need to know to understand Andrew's very well-drafted limericks. Here's the first one. Some doctors save those with rabies. Others treat those with scabies. When left in the lurch, for whom do Lou and Jane search? A doctor who merely kills babies. Yeah. And here's another one. This is not a limerick, but it's punchy. The governor has nothing to fear. She'll soon find an abortionist to come and live out here. This new doctor won't deal with pneumonia or scabies. He'll rid the island of unwanted babies. So things will be fine in the end, don't you see? For the new butcher has a medical degree. Whoa. But Andrew's a really fair guy, so he drafted one up, kind of like he did the other day. This would be a submission from Lou and Jane, kind of seen through their eyes. So Lou and Jane would say this: we don't appreciate your distortion. We're just trying to restore abortion. It's not a real life that is sliced with a knife. Don't blow it out of proportion. Which is what, apparently Governor Lulian Guerrero is very sensitive to having the media blow things out of proportion. When the machete wheelers attacked Judy Guthertz, that was Lou's primary leadership statement. I think it was blown out of proportion. Yeah. So let me just do this one more time. This is Lou and Jane probably addressing Tall Tales. We don't appreciate your distortion. We're just trying to restore abortion. It's not a real life that is sliced with a knife. Don't blow it out of proportion. Yeah, that's how it goes. Okay, next item on the card. Where did the card go? I had it here a minute ago. Well, here it goes. This is CLTC versus those who have applied for leases at the land of land trust land. Yeah, here it goes. The Land Trust Commission adopted 4 resolutions here very recently, and I'm looking at one, well, not so recently. I'm looking at one that was adopted on the 21st of March. Yeah, well, let me stop here for a second and see what Kellis has to say. Good afternoon, Kellis.
Good afternoon. I was just sitting there thinking that if those machete welding innocent people had run over to the governor's car and started whacking it, would her bodyguards get all out of proportion and, stop them? Or would they just, You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
You know, Judy Guthrie took it all out of proportion. I bet you the governor's protection detail would have actually stopped it pretty fast.
One would think so, yeah. And since instead of having a regular executive protection service in the government, we use cops for that. So the cops would add firearms, wouldn't they?
Yes, they would have.
Yeah, and we'd be talking about a totally different story if those machete wielders had gone after the governor's car.
No, so yeah, that's what I was sitting there thinking about, because I bet you if Judy or if an officer was there at the time, they would have probably taken it out of proportion also and ended their reign.
Yeah, we might have had an exercise and stand your ground, right?
Yes. But yeah, I thought that was, you know, pretty odd. And I thought that was good when they said that it blew it out of proportion. So you did really good on the limericks today.
Well, thank you very much, Kel. It's always good to hear from you.
That was it.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, so I've got a couple of these resolutions here. And here's one that says... On January 17, 2019, the CLTC Board of Commissioners. Now, first of all, is there a CLTC Board of Commissioners, Real Joe Cruz?
I don't believe there is, sir.
There is a CLTC, Chamorro Land Trust Commission, right?
Yeah.
So what this says is the Chamorro Land Trust Commission Board of Commissioners. All right, I got to take a short break here, and I'll come back here and pick up with the CLTC versus applicants.
When it comes to power and performance, nothing compares to Dodge. And right now at Cars Plus and Mighty, you can save thousands on many Dodge vehicles in stock during our Dodge Performance Days. Like a new 2019 Grand Caravan SE, save $4,250, or save $6,150 on a new Durango SXT. Looking for more power? Take home a new Charger SXT Plus today for only $37,689, or save over $7,000 on a new Challenger GT. Get more power and performance at Cars Plus and Mighty during Dodge Performance Days. Cars Plus, driven by you.
If you're driving, chances are you'll need gas soon. And by the growl in your tummy, a trip to the grocery store too. But don't just buy gas and groceries without getting double miles. Instead, apply for the new United credit card from First Hawaiian Bank and start earning double miles towards your next trip. Gas, groceries, getaway. With the new United credit card, apply at FHB.com. First Hawaiian Bank, member FDIC. Equal housing lender. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
Okay, so we got about 7 more minutes here before the big halftime show that we've all been so anxiously waiting for. So I'm going to work with this piece of work from the Land Trust Commission here. The Chamorro Land Trust Act created a Chamorro Land Trust Commission. And people who sit on that commission are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the legislature. They are referred to as commissioners. And when they sit together, when they are all grouped together, it is a meeting of the commission. There's no board at the Chamorro Land Trust Commission unless it's perhaps something that someone has pounded a nail into or something like that. So come on, Land Trust Commission, you haven't got anything else right. Can't you at least get your name right? Am I asking too much? So this resolution says the CLTC Board of Commissioners, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission Board of Commissioners. Wow, it's no wonder. Going up a little bit, it says, in accordance with Public Law 23-38, Section 7.5, requests for transfers will be considered for approval only if the lessee has held such lease for a period of at least 7 years, unless the CLTC, in its considered opinion, finds that an emergency exists which makes transfer imperative. And then a little later on, we find that on January 17, the CLTC Board of Commissioners at their regular scheduled meeting reviewed and approved by a motion to grant the approval authority to the administrative director to approve beneficiary designations for leaseholders. So the statute that they quote says that that unless the CLTC, and it's considered opinion, but they're delegating that authority to the executive director. Well, first question, is that authority delegable? And I suspect no. Second question, why would you want to delegate that authority to the executive director? There is a real benefit in having decisions made by the members of a board or commission. If a board or commission makes a decision, it has to be done in an open meeting. Ask the CCU about that. And that there has to be notice of that meeting. It has to be properly called and noticed. Minutes have to be recorded of the meeting. And there are other requirements that if a board, or in this case, a commission does something, if the executive director does it, none of those things. You don't know when he did it. You don't know when they did it. There's no notice that they are going to do it, no notice that they have done it. None of those things that come along with the board. So boards should never delegate their authority unless they have a really good reason for doing it. And I couldn't tell you one off the top of my head. The other reason advanced for allowing for creating these boards and commissions is that the thinking is that if you have a 5 or 7 member board or commission, the quality of your decisions will be better than if it's a single person. Each person comes equipped with his own biases, prejudices, likes, dislikes, etc. But when you have more than one person involved in making decisions, those things tend to balance out. And you tend to come up with a higher quality decision than if a decision is made by one person. But here we go. So when it comes to requests for transfers, Land Trust says executive director can do it. And the second one that I'm looking at here, in accordance with Public Law 2338, Section 9.1 a lessee shall, upon execution of the lease, designate the person in whom lessee directs the interest in the tract to vest upon death. A lessee's designation may be changed at any time by the lessee. Such designation shall be made as specified in the Act, with the right in the lessee to change the beneficiary at any time if filed with and approved by the commission. Same set of reasoning comes here, right? But what did the commission do? Whereas December 20, 2018, the CLTC Board of Commissioners at their regular meeting reviewed and approved a motion to grant the approval authority to the administrative director to approve beneficiary designations or lease for leaseholders in accordance with the law. Well, once again, if the statute says commissioners, can they delegate it? In Section 2, why would they want to? Yeah. Okay, well, I've got a little bit more to say on this. I'll hang on to it until after that big halftime show that everyone has been looking forward to.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Cutting orders for the Middle East. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan approving Central Command's request for 1,000 more troops to be deployed to the Middle East amid the continuing tensions with Iran. America's chief diplomat will meet with military leaders later today.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will meet Tuesday with military leaders at U.S. Central Command in Tampa to discuss the deteriorating situation in the Middle East. U.S. officials have released new photos they say show Iran's responsibility in attacking 2 tankers last week. Color images they describe as Iranian sailors removing a mine from one of the tankers. Iran denies involvement and suggests the United States staged the attacks. Iran's leaders are also warning they're expanding their nuclear program, saying they're on track to exceed limits in stockpiled uranium set in the 2015 nuclear deal. The U.S. withdrew from the nuclear agreement last year and restored sanctions against Iran.
Fox's Rich Edson. There is congressional response. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi saying in a statement, the U.S. must remain committed to holding Iran accountable for its dangerous activities in the region, but we must be strong, smart, and strategic, not reckless and rash. But Senate Armed Services Committee member Tom Cotton says it's a prudent move
to build up our force protection posture at some of our permanent bases in the region, like in Qatar and Bahrain, where we have thousands of sailors and airmen based, as well as some of the contingency forces we have in places like Iraq. It'll also help with surveillance in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman against the kind of attacks, unprovoked attacks on commercial shipping on the high seas.
Senator Cotton served with the U.S. military in Iraq and Afghanistan. ICE next week will begin the process of removing the millions of illegal aliens who have illicitly found their way into the United States. That tweet from President Trump late last evening, he did not elaborate. This is Fox News.
Hey, it's Mom. Somebody forgot to thaw the chicken, so meet us at Chili's for 2 for $25. Oh, and congratulate your sister for making the basketball team. She's thrilled. Love you. See you at Chili's.
Enjoy 2 full meal combos for $25. An appetizer, 2 mouth-watering entrees like our crispy chicken breast, smoked barbecue quarter leg, or smoked jalapeno cheddar sausage. Served with corn on the cob and french fries. 2 bold combos for $25. A full-on meal deal available nightly for a limited time. Together, we Chili's.
Liberate your mind with laughter. Budweiser presents Hypnosis Comedy coming to Guam Liberation Weekend.
Half a day, Guam. I am comedian hypnotist Rich Guzzi, and I can't wait to see you July 20th and 22nd at the Sheraton Laguna Hotel.
With local comedy legend Frank Rios opening the show. $25 general admission, $35 for VIPs. Tickets on sale at 76 Circle K stations and at Coffee Slut. Special thanks to Community First, the Guam Daily Post, Delta Tires, Tri-Vision, and Choice Broadcasting.
You will have the time of your life.
Liberate Your Mind with Laughter is a GSPN production.
The U.S. Supreme Court Monday upholding redrawn congressional maps in Virginia thought to favor Democrats.
Virginia's latest legislative maps will stay in place after a divided Supreme Court rejected arguments from state Republicans. The 5-4 opinion, authored by Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and joined by a mix of conservative and liberal justices Clarence Thomas, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Neil Gorsuch, found the state's Republican-led House of Delegates cannot challenge the maps since state officials declined to appeal. The case dates back to 2011 maps drawn by Republican lawmakers and tossed out for factoring race into several House districts. The lower court chose a new map. The Supreme Court has upheld that decision. In Washington, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
The High Court also upheld the exception from double jeopardy protection for a person charged with both federal and state charges for the same crime and returned to the lower court for further review a case over a Portland, Oregon baker who'd refused to make a cake for a same-gender wedding, citing religious beliefs. The State Department has told Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley several department employees, either past or present, have been found culpable for security violations related to classified documents in Hillary Clinton's private email server. They've not been publicly identified, but Fox's Catherine Herridge reports key Clinton aides Huma Abedin and Jake Sullivan are among those who sent classified documents through that unsecured server. It's been a strong earthquake in southwestern China. At least a dozen people reported dead, scores more injured. Rescue efforts reported underway in the 73 homes the media there says have collapsed. A 6.0 magnitude earthquake and a 5.1 magnitude aftershock struck the Sichuan province late Monday night. The aftershocks there are continuing. Asian stocks closing Tuesday mixed. Dow futures down slightly. On Monday, the Dow closed almost 23 points higher. NASDAQ up 48. The S&P 500 gained 2. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
In illness and in wellness, Calvo's Select Care is health care that is there for you. That's why over 80% of the Guam medical community places their trust and insures with us. We offer our members wellness and fitness programs for a healthier lifestyle and provide a comprehensive medical network on and off island to help members from unexpected illnesses. Contact Calvo's Select Care today for more information.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
So that was the big halftime show that we've all come to know and love. We've finished it again. Joe and I, the real Joe Cruz and I, enjoyed every minute of it. And now we are in the second half of Tall Tales. I left off with a resolution adopted by the Chamorro Land Trust Commission Board of Commissioners, two of them actually. And the one I'm looking at now, the one that deals with Alessi's designation as to who takes the leasehold upon his death, this one was adopted by motion on December 20, 2018. And they finally got around to preparing the resolution on March 21, 2019. That's only 3 months, right? But ask yourself this, on December 20, 2018, who was the director of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission? Who was the executive director? Do you know, real Joe Cruz?
Mr. Borja?
He was, yeah. In December of last year, he was the executive director because he was a director of land management, and as such, he was the executive director of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission and the Ancestral Lands Commission. Now, after all of the shenanigans that occurred on his watch, they still gave him this kind of authority. Remember, he's the guy that signed a lease as both a lessor and the lessee for his sister. And there were so many shenanigans that went on at that time. So they gave it to him. So I guess they figured, well, you know, it's only a couple weeks till the new administration takes over. How much harm can he do in that amount of time? We'll take a chance. And then I suspect, and it took a while before Jack Haddock stopped being a professional baseball player here on Tall Tales and went to work as the executive director of the Land Trust Commission. But I suppose somewhere along the line they figured, well, Jack would never do the stuff that Borja did. Maybe that's the popular thought right now. But I went back into my morgue here, and I found this article that appeared in the Post. The Chamorro Land Trust Commission said there was no wrongdoing on the part of Department of Land Management Director Michael Borja or staff members and their families in relation to the controversial leases in Barrigada Heights. The statement was in the first of several anticipated press releases looking to chronicle issues and initiatives at the Commission. Media attention around the CLTC began with Barrigada Heights leases, some of which were issued to certain government officials or their relatives. Among them was Bora, director of the umbrella agency for the CLTC. The issue was initiated by residents concerned with clearing work in the area, drawing media attention to the development of CLTC properties in Barrigada Heights. According to the release, the Commission looked into the clearing of easements which occurred at Bora's request. The Commission concluded that there was no wrongdoing on the director's part. When Guam Power Authority had cleared part of the easement, the director took advantage of that by requesting the Department of Public Works to clear the rest of the easement in order to reach CLTC land that had been inaccessible since the program started. Clearing the easement provided access, which meant that leases could be issued to those properties, the Commission stated. A review found 100 leases issued involving Barrigada Heights lots between 1997 and April 2018. 57 leases were issued between 2014 and 2018. One of these leases was issued to a DLM staff member, and 3 were issued to relatives of staff members. Just a coincidence, I'm sure. In addition, news stories noted 2 leases were issued to these the press considered, quote, well-connected to people in the government. Leases in each case were derived from a December 1995 application. The Commission stated, we conducted an investigation into these leases along with a review of the entire CLTC program and policies. At the conclusion of the investigation, the Commission could find no wrongdoing by the director, staff members, their family members, or those well-connected to individuals who have the leases because they were following the policies in place at the time, which is kind of a roundabout way of saying that they were doing it wrong, but they were doing it the same wrong way that had been done for a long time. So it wasn't wrong. If you do something wrong back there, Real Joe Cruz, and you do it for a long, long time, then it's not wrong anymore. Yeah. So if it's time for Zemi Ikutni and you push the law and order button, if you do it probably for 2 or 3 weeks, then it's okay. Yeah. The Commission has expanded its review to cover all CLTC leases and is in the process of submitting suggested changes in law to the legislature. It has also asked the legislature to confirm its ratification of voidable leases and to ratify those through action leases considered null and void. So one of the things that came out of this was the Attorney General said, the executive director's been signing these leases and the law says they got to be approved by the Commission. And the second thing the Attorney General said was you can't swap in the line. So what is the Land Trust Commission doing now? They're giving the executive director authority to sign off on their behalf. Now, I know there are going to be people out there saying, well, yeah, but Jack wouldn't do the same things that Michael Bora did. Doesn't matter. You know, the old saying is, once burned, twice cautious. The Chamorro Land Trust Commission shouldn't be delegating authority to anyone to do anything, except maybe go through and correct the usage of the English language in their resolutions. So, bad again, Chamorro Land Trust Commission. You haven't learned a thing. Okay, going on from there to next item on the list is Joe San Augustine, Senator Joe San Augustine versus Michael J. Fox. And can you explain a little bit about who Michael J. Fox is, Real Joe Cruz?
Popular actor from the 80s and 90s.
What was his most famous series of movies?
Back to the Future.
And what was that about?
That was about him and this crazy scientist friend of his fitting a DeLorean with some technology to take them either into the future or into the past.
So Michael J. Fox could actually go back.
Yeah, he could go back in time.
Go back in time, yeah. Well, apparently Joe San Augustine liked that movie so well that he has enacted the the Back to the Future Act of 2019.
Nice.
Yeah, here's the story. Those nice shoes you want to order from an off-island retailer and ship to Guam through the U.S. Postal Service could get taxed to help boost government of Guam revenues, according to a senator. It's not a new tax, but an existing tax that we have not been capturing, Senator Joe San Augustine told the PDN on Monday. San Augustine, chairman of the Appropriations Committee, is proposing to add the U.S. Postal Service as a point of entry for the purposes of Guam taxation. Right now, he said, only items entering Guam through the port of Guam and through the airport are assessed the 4% on all items imported for personal or business use. Items purchased through online retailers or suppliers are not charged this 4% excise or use tax. Guam has been missing out on these tax revenues. Taxing online purchases is not a new idea. I'll skip over that part. Items bought or sold on island are subject to the 5% business gross receipts tax. Talking about his idea, San Augustine said it's not going to stop online shopping, adding that Guam shoppers have shifted to online sales for many items because they're a lot cheaper than those sold on island, and that's not necessarily going to change if they are taxed. Millions of parcels enter Guam every year through the U.S. Postal Service, along with those coming in through private couriers. San Augustine introduced on Monday Bill 66, which seeks to tax property arriving in Guam via the U.S. Postal Services. If enacted, the measure requires Guam's Customs and Quarantine to execute a memorandum of agreement with the Postal Service to ensure collection of taxes. The prior administration said RevTax currently assess a use tax on goods that are purchased off-island and brought in through private courier businesses such as UPS and FedEx, because local customs and quarantine agency helps out with identifying goods that are taxable. But when purchases are made through online retailers that use the U.S. Postal Service, there's no mechanism for local government to assess tax at the point of arrival, RevTax had said. Well, Joe, back in the 60s, when the use tax was first enacted into law, 67, 68, maybe somewhere back in there, when you got a package from off-island, you went to the Agana post office to pick it up. Now, back in those days, Real Joe Cruz, the Agana post office was kind of the center of the island. It's where you ran into your friends. It's where, if you had good ears, you picked up a lot of gossips. It was a real focus on the island. That was before we had home delivery. And an awful lot of people were down there every day to pick up their mail. So back in those days, after the use tax was added to our law, when you got a package and you went to the window to pick it up, Mrs. Bailey would say, well, okay, but I got to call customs. I can't give you the package now. We've got to wait till customs comes over. So you'd stand around for about 20 minutes till the lady came over from customs. And then the lady at post office would give her the package, and you'd take it over to one of those tables and open it up, and the lady would look at it, and she would probably say, well, you don't owe any tax on this because. So it was a pretty cumbersome system, but that's the way we did it 50 years ago, Joe. 50 years ago.
50 years ago.
Yeah, back in the day. And I don't think the statute at that time didn't talk about requiring customs and quarantine to execute a memorandum with the post office. I think they just did it. So this was my own personal take on it. I wasn't spending a whole lot of money on stuff coming from off island. Most of the stuff I got from off island was in the form of some kind of a gift. And if I had to pay the tax, which I very seldom did, because people that gave me gifts didn't have a lot of money, I would have, and it wouldn't have been important to me. But to stand around and wait for that customs officer to come over, that was too much. I'm too impatient. I've never been good at open-ended waiting, and I don't think most people are either. So great idea, Joe. You're really out on the frontier here with a brand new idea that we've never tried before. Nothing like a little innovative thinking, right, real Joe Cruz? Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's pretty clear that Senator Joe San Augustine was really thinking out of the box on this one. Unless, maybe he should have asked his dad about how we used to do it back in those days. All right, going on here. Next item on the card is Talina versus Moylan. You recall that last year we didn't have any gambling at the carnival. We didn't need any stinking gambling at the carnival. And then this year, Talina didn't want to have gambling at the carnival. In fact, she said she didn't want the mayor's council to have anything to do with it. She said that she wanted the Visitors Bureau to handle the parade and the carnival, at least the parade, which to me made eminently good sense. That's the kind of thing the Visitors Bureau does. The mayor's council, to me, is a waste of money. It's a quasi-parliamentary body where mayors get together and approve their next junket to the Strawberry Festival, elect a president, and do a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with their own villages. The mayors are the only people they are the government in each of our villages. They should be accessible, and they should be looking after their villages, not horsing around with carnivals and parliamentary bodies, etc. And when Jim Moylan introduced his bill to allow them to draft rules and regulations for gambling at the carnival, saying that this doesn't legalize it, this is just how we could do it if we wanted to. But of course, it turned into a bill to legalize gambling. And my analysis then was, of all of the organizations to put in charge of doing rules and regulations, I can't think of a more inept group than the Mayor's Council. That wasn't far off. It took them 3 cracks to get it acceptable. And then even Angel Sablon said, well, you know, we had a provision in there that would have allowed us to determine who the real backers of the bidders were, but somehow it didn't make it into the final version. So this thing was snake bit from the very beginning. And I'm looking at an article from KUAM Friday night, or no, last night, I'm sorry. And here's what it says. House of Cards deals bad hand on day 1. Nelson wants accountability. It's a case of, I hate to say I told you so. Vice Speaker Talina Nelson, one of the legislature's staunchest gambling opponents, said not even 2 weeks into the operation, the casino at the carnival is already cause for concern. The casino was found in violation of rules and regs when cash was found on a table on opening day. It's supposed to be chips, not cash. But of course, cash is so much easier if you want to avoid paying taxes, cash is so much easier than chips if you keep track of the chips and are accountable for the chips. Department of Revenue and Taxation Director Daphne Shimizu tells KOAM there will be no fine issued for the violation. Why would we want to fine them just because they broke the rules? Come on. Nelson is calling for accountability for the Liberation Carnival games. There was promises made that the casino would not be on carnival grounds. Now all of a sudden it's on carnival grounds. She also mentioned KOAM News reports that Mongmong Toto Mighty Mayor Rudy Paco and Barrigada Vice Mayor Jesse Babauta are listed as part of the big and small bid winner Jonathan Shea's team. So we had the Commissioners' Council that was in charge of this, accepting bids, and a couple members of that council wind up backing one of the bidders. And we've got an ethics commission, and let's get them sworn in and let's get them on this stuff. But once again, Talina Nelson was so right on this, and Jim Moylan was so wrong. And this is just this is the first day of the carnival. And what kind of mayors do we have, Rudy Paco and Jesse Bautista, who think it's okay for them to back the big and small game? Oh, boy. Okay, next we've got Tina versus Maybe. And the title, this is something I picked up from Pacific News Center. The title is Speaker Unveils Three-Pronged Approach to War Claims. It appears that local leaders remain at odds regarding their approach to finally getting war claims paid 75 years after World War II. A joint effort by the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration and local lawmakers has been launched through legislation expected out of Speaker Tina Rose Munya Barnes' office. An effort from the local front that Congressman Michael San Nicolas said serves no clarity as to what is actually being proposed by the administration. So I characterize this as the battle for the headlines. San Nicolas is picking up a flawed proposal that needs a congressional fix, and he's doing what he can to get the congressional fix in place so that our own Section 30 money can be released to the claimants. Now, at the same time, the governor and the speaker would like to get some headlines out of this already, and of course they already have. I'm looking at a picture of the two of them here in Pacific News Center on PNC News, and they have gotten some earned media out of this, although they haven't accomplished a thing. So the article goes on to say, San Nicolas claims that Adeloup's proposal would only pay 600 claimants, and we have 3,663, over 5 times more claimants than Adeloup is able to pay with the $6 to $7 million they say is available. However, on News Talks 57, your 4-hour fill, I wonder what that is.
I have no idea.
The speaker shared the 3-pronged legislative approach that they are adopting. First, in order to get the list of war reparations claimants, the speaker says certain provisions may be necessary. May be necessary. And then she goes on to say, we are maybe exploring a provision that requires one to submit a claims letter to GovGuam and maybe even sign a promissory note that says the adjudicated claim letter is legitimate And if the survivors were to get paid by the feds for the claim, that maybe GovGuam would pay us, that they will return the money to GovGuam if GovGuam pays them advance, Munya Barnes said. Now, I've drafted a statute or two in my day, and I've read a whole lot of them, and I know what some of the conventions in drafting statutes are. Shall is mandatory, may is permissive, right? It's probably better to use must than shall, but shall works. And, ordinarily, if you use the masculine, it includes the feminine. Before we got woke enough to use the word they to talk about a single person. Okay, I'm going to come back to this right after the seventh inning. Maybe I'll come back to this right after the seventh inning stretch, because maybe that's what's next.
Your home is one of the most important investments you'll make in your life. At Nanbo Insurance, you can rest easy knowing that you're covered with reliable and affordable homeowners insurance. Nanbo makes it easy to protect what matters the most so you can enjoy the moments that matter the most. With Nanbo, you can also save big when you bundle up and insure your car, home, motorcycle, or business. Enjoy great savings up to 50%. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for more details.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
It's said by some to be the one quality all truly successful people have. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show with Daryl Taggarty, we'll look at what we need more of to get to where we want to be.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Okay, so here we are, seventh inning stretch, heading into the last two innings of Tall Tales for this afternoon. So, I don't know how you would draft a statute around the word maybe. Maybe it's possible, maybe not. But there's no maybe. I wouldn't advise the use of the word maybe in any statute. Okay, the second prong of the Speaker's pending legislation would grant the governor transfer authority over excess funding she finds and allowing her to reappropriate said funds into a local claims fund without infringing upon funds designated for health care, education, and public safety. This is even sillier than the use of the words maybe. You know? Any excess funds that the governor finds, and where is she going to find excess funds? And if she finds them, she can put them into this local claims fund, but she can't infringe on funds designated for health care, education, and public safety, like we're spending enough money on those things already. You know, we go through this every time. The Department of Corrections budget is $2 million less than last year. Education never gets enough money to run that department. Healthcare, of course, for healthcare, we've got to reserve enough money to hire the abortionists that Jane Flores finds. Okay, now the explanation here on the second prong is this. The second prong would allow our MAGA Haga to make a fiscally conscious decision to ensure that we pay off our survivors and not impact on the essential government functions. What is a fiscally conscious decision? If you could make a fiscally conscious decision, I guess it's theoretically possible to make a fiscally unconscious decision. Now, how would a person make a fiscally unconscious decision? Let's say I know how you could do it. You could go downtown to buy a car and say, I'd like to buy this car over here. I don't know how much it costs, so I'll sign a check, and you figure out how much it costs. I'll close my eyes, and you write in the amount in the check. That would be a fiscally unconscious decision. But if if Tina's bill passes, it would allow the governor to make a fiscally conscious decision to ensure that we pay off our survivors and not impact the essential government functions. Oh, nice. And then the third prong, how that would work is we would authorize one of the local agencies to cut the checks to the survivors. And you and I know that based on that, it would probably need the engagement of the Department of Administration and the Department of Revenue and Taxation. I got to go back for a second. I'll go back about 3 or 4 maybes to something else that it just shows a complete lack of thought. We are maybe exploring a provision that requires one to submit a claims letter to GovGuam and maybe even sign a promissory note. So you sign it. This is what they're thinking. You know, let's say that I got one of the letters from the Claims Commission say I'm entitled to 10 grand. So I take this to some office that Tina designates in her bill, and I say, here's my letter. You can make a Xerox copy of it, and I'll sign this paper that says it's genuine, and I'm going to sign a promissory note, and I promise that I will pay you $10,000. Okay, and let's say that I get the check from the U.S. Treasury. What do I do next? I don't do anything. And what happens? Nothing. You know, you don't take a promissory note and deposit to your account in the bank. A promissory note is just that. Someone's promised to pay. And if the person who signs the promissory note doesn't feel like paying, the only recourse that you have is to file suit. And how good is that going to be public relations-wise, to sue these old people, you know, that finally got their war claims? That's a great idea, Tina, a promissory note. And, you know, I've mentioned before in my lawyer's toolkit, I've got a pair of dung-colored glasses. I refer to them as shucks-colored glasses also because the real color is denominated by a word that you're not supposed to say on the air. But I put on my shucks-colored glasses and I look down the road and I see everything that can happen, every bad thing that can happen. Well, all of the people that we're talking about here are oldsters. The youngest would be in their 70s, some are in their 90s. And, you know, the death rate is pretty high on folks like that. So Citizen X signs his promissory note, gets his check, and dies. How are you going to collect your promissory note? You're going to have to bring an action against his estate if he actually starts as state administration. If he doesn't, then the government is going to have to do that. It's just not a way to do things, Tina. Promissory note. Not good at all. Not a good idea to start with. And it's obviously an idea that you haven't thought through. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you've thought it through, but it certainly doesn't look like it from what I've seen in this news release. And if you had thought it through, then the thing to do would have been to introduce your bill. But I suspect anybody who's going to draft this bill is going to have to do a lot of head scratching, asking himself, how do I get through all these maybes? So I sympathize with Michael St. Nicholas, who's trying to do the right thing, and he has to do with stuff like this on the home front. The only salvation here is that maybe the folks in Washington that Michael is trying to persuade to help him along won't find out what a silly scheme we have back here. Let's hope so. Okay, moving right along to, that was Tina versus Maybe. And then I've got more on the Wokesters versus Gibsons. You'll recall that that was something that dealt with Oberlin College and a bakery, where a couple of guys came in and tried to shoplift a couple bottles of wine. And the shopkeeper, whose name happened to be Gibson, now this wasn't Ray Gibson, Real Joe Cruz. This wasn't a real Gibson. So they chased the guy outside. The cops came. They arrested the guy. And there are a lot of more interesting details to that story. But the guy pled guilty. And Oberlin College did everything they could to make it miserable for this Gibson bakery. They protested out in front. They passed out literature, etc. Oberlin College finally got tired of it and sued and got a $33 million judgment. So today I ran across the workup. I read it yesterday, a pretty good workup on it, and today I found out what Salon had to say, how Salon saw the whole thing unfolding. Salon is a left-wing progressive website. And here's what Salon said. Oberlin College has been ordered by a jury to pay $44 million to a local bakery after the Midwestern Liberal Arts School was found responsible for defamation, infliction of emotional distress, and interference with business relationships. The verdict comes nearly 3 years after a skirmish broke out between Jonathan Aladdin, a black student at the Liberal Arts College, and Alan Gibson Jr., the son and grandson of the owners of Gibson's Bakery and Food Market, a family-owned establishment near the college's campus in Oberlin, Ohio. The altercation set off a bitter standoff between the college and the bakery, which has been a fixture in the college community for more than 100 years, over free speech, racial profiling, and discrimination. Now remember, this is Salon. Jurors in Lorain County awarded Gibson's $33 million in punitive damages. In an email statement sent to Oberlin College students and alumni Friday morning, President Carmen Twilly Ambar wrote that the legal process is far from over. Let me be absolutely clear. This is not the final outcome. This is, in fact, just one step along the way of what may turn out to be a lengthy and complex legal process. Okay, and the case started from the arrest, a fake ID, etc. And then Oberlin College alleged that Gibson Jr. violently and unreasonably attacked the student who he suspected of shoplifting, then chased the student out of the store across West College Street into Tappan Square, where he placed the student in a chokehold. A little different from what I read yesterday. Two of Aladdin's friends, black female Oberlin College students, intervened and tried to pry Alan Jr. off Mr. Aladdin, the college claimed. Oberlin police officers arrived at the scene and arrested the three students, but did not arrest Gibson. The November 9, 2016 arrests of the three students just a day after Donald Trump clinched the presidency prompted a series of heated demonstrations in front of the local business, with some students waving flyers that encouraged a boycott of the establishment. Quote, a member of our community was assaulted by the owner of this establishment, read a flyer issued outside the bakery, calling Gibson's a racist establishment with a long account of racial profiling and discrimination. The flyer also identified 10 of the bakery's competitors where the demonstrators urged Gibson's Bakery's customers to shop instead. In response to the students' accusations of racial profiling, police conducted an investigation and found that 40 adults had been arrested for shoplifting at the bakery in the past 5 years, among them 6 African Americans. So I guess you don't have to be an African American to shoplift in Oberlin, Ohio. In an email to students on Friday after the unrest, Oberlin's then president Marvin Krisloff and vice president, dean of students Meredith Raimundo acknowledged that fiery reactions to the case may be linked to fears and concerns that many are feeling in response to the outcome of the presidential elections. So you're really disappointed that Trump won, so you make it hard on the local bakery. They vowed to use every resource to determine the full and true narrative, and they said they were deeply troubled because we heard from students that there is more to the story than what was generally reported. In the following days of students' arrest, Oberlin College announced it had severed its business relationship with Gibson's. 3 months later, the college reinstated its business with Gibson's, but refused to retract the defamatory statements that had been made, according to the complaint, which noted that the shop had already suffered dire consequences. The combined effects of the defamation, boycotts, demonstrations, refusal to do business with Gibson's was having a devastating effect on the bakery and Gibson's family, the court document stated. In August of 2017, Aladdin and the 2 students pleaded guilty to attempted theft and aggravated trespass. Court documents state and were required to pay a fine. Before their sentencing, each student read a statement acknowledging that Gibson's was justifying and tried to restrain Aladdin, and that the actions of the shop's employees had not been racially motivated. This unfortunate incident was triggered by an attempt to purchase alcohol, Aladdin wrote. I believe the employees of Gibson's were not racially motivated. They were merely trying to prevent an underage sale. The bakery's owners argued that Oberlin facilitated, encouraged, and promoted the illegal defamation and economic boycott of Gibson's by helping students copy and distribute flyers, suspending classes, etc. The lawsuit claimed college tour guides continued to advise prospective and future students not to shop at Gibson's because it was a racist establishment that assaults the students. Oberlin responded by arguing that none of the statements cited by the bakery's owners had been defamatory and said the school was not responsible for the views expressed by students. The college said Raimundo attended the demonstrations to ensure that students' freedom of speech was protected and that the students' demonstrations were safe and lawful. Now, I remember when I read the account yesterday, the account was that Raimundo was out there with a bullhorn urging the students on. The lawsuit divided the Oberlin community, with some students urging their colleagues to boycott Gibson's Bakery and protest the establishment, while others advised taking action against the bakery. Cameron Dunbar, a student at the Liberal Arts College who was present at many of the demonstrations, told Salon that the lawsuit impacted how the student body understands our relationship with the town of Oberlin. It cemented the idea that freedom of speech is never free. I could see the verdict discouraging college administrations from doing their full duty to protect and ensure the safety of their student body. Remember, this is Salon now. This is a progressive website. Sidney Allen, the former editor-in-chief of Oberlin student newspaper, has written extensively about the lawsuit during her time on campus, told Salon she believes the campus will be dealing with the ramifications of the lawsuit for a while. I don't expect this to end. This is the end of the conflict. And I imagine if Gibson's continues to operate in Oberlin, its relationship with the college and especially students will continue to be very frosty. Yeah, well, for $33 million, I guess they could put up with a little frost. Okay, I've got this is the home stretch. I just think we need to spend a little more time on this, and I will after the seventh inning stretch.
This is Ronnie. Ronnie is about to break his piggy bank.
Come on, piggy bank.
Ronnie wants to upgrade his smartphone.
And this piggy's gonna help me.
If Ronnie had signed up for GTA's handset payment option, he could have selected a new smartphone with an affordable monthly plan.
I could have what?
Exactly. Sign up for HBO at GTA and don't break the bank.
I'm sorry, piggy bank.
Terms and conditions apply. GTA, we start with you.
How often do you find the need to visit multiple clinics? When a child has a serious ailment, do you find yourself meeting a medical provider only to learn you must go somewhere else for testing? At the FHP Health Center, you can find multiple specialties and testing services under one roof. And if your family needs urgent care, FHP is there for you with convenient weekday, evening, and weekend hours. Voted the island's best clinic in Pika's Best 2 years in a row. FHP, our island, your clinic. Learn more at fhpguam.com.
Call to the post. Churchill Downs, Lexington, Kentucky. Here we go in the home stretch. So this lady, Allen, says she feels very alienated from the community and people who supported Gibson's in this case, and noted she received a lot of vile, hateful, and threatening messages for her coverage of the case. And also she said this divide and alienation is not just siloed in Oberlin, but is representative of a larger national divide that has worsened in recent years as many Americans become more and more nationalist. Oh, wow, national. And I've confessed right here on this microphone, I am a nationalist. So I guess she's talking about me. More and more nationalist and against progressive thinking and higher education. I'm not against higher education, but I'm darn sure against progressive thinking, like all of the stuff that we're running into on a daily basis. She said, this case represents an opportunity to stick it to a leftist institution, and I think some people rallied behind that, kind of like what I'm doing right now. So, very interesting. And I think this is important because of what's going on in college campuses in the mainland. They're not teaching. There isn't teaching going on in so many cases. It's indoctrination into the leftist ideology. And as is the case here with Oberlin, the issue is not the issue. The cause is the issue. And the cause is to turn everybody to a hard left with identity politics, neo-Marxism, etc., so that they throw off the shackles of capitalism. And you can maybe be racist about it too. White capitalism, which is the oppressor and is seen as the evil in every single scenario. Well, I've got one more article here covering the same thing. This one's by Jonathan Turley, who I really like. I've mentioned him. Jonathan has been here before. He's not a liberal. He's a little bit conservative, but I think he probably voted for Hillary last time around. So he's not what you'd call a right-winger, perhaps a little bit conservative. And he says, for many who lament the shift from academics to activism across college campuses in the United States, Oberlin College in Ohio is the equivalent of the, quote, China syndrome during nuclear accidents. a point where chain reactions become impossible to stop or control. Oberlin students often find new issues to protest even on one of the most liberal campuses in the world, like objections to serving sushi because it's cultural appropriation. As on other campuses across the country, these protests are encouraged by an array of faculty members and ever-accommodating administrators. This week, however, the bill came due for Oberlin when a jury awarded $11 million in damages to a family bakery for being defamed as racist by its college students and officials. That motion was later followed by a whopping $33 million in punitive awards. It is only the latest example of how faculty members and officials are driving their institutions towards financial and intellectual bankruptcy thanks to their advocacy or acquiescence. The latest controversy began with a shoplifting case, and I won't go through that again, right? Oberlin maintains in court filings that the son and grandson of the owners violently and unreasonably attacked an unarmed student. But that is not how the police viewed it. Aladdin was charged with robbery, which is a second-degree felony, and Whetstone and Lawrence were charged with first-degree misdemeanor assault. Police rejected claims of racial motivation and noted that over a period of 5 years, 40 adults were arrested for shoplifting at Gibson's, but only 6 were African Americans. It is also not how the court viewed it. When prosecutors cut a plea deal to reduce the charge to attempted theft, a local judge refused. He said the plea deal appeared to be the result of a permanent economic sanction by the college in which the victim had little choice but to relent. Ultimately, all 3 pleaded guilty. The merits of the case did not seem to bother Oberlin officials. Dean of Students Meredith Raimundo reportedly joined the massive protests and even handed out a flyer denouncing the bakery as a racist business. When some people contacted Oberlin to object that the students admitted guilt, Special Assistant to the President for Community and Government Relations, Tita Reed, wrote that it did not change a damn thing for her. Reed also participated in campus protests. Other faculty members encouraged students who denounced the bakery. The chairman of African Studies posted, quote, "Be very proud of our students." Well, in any case, I guess I won't be able to finish this, but for once, when people did something wrong, they were held to account for doing something wrong in a big way. And the frosting on this case is that the lawyers that represented the bakery were working on the contingency fee, so they probably got a third of that large award. Anything that puts more fees in the pockets of lawyers can't be all bad. See you tomorrow.